Hello there, and welcome to the value of everything. We are back. We are back for another podcast, which is, and I'll give you the title early on rather than rambling, Education in Anarchy. Oh my gosh. Now, where we go with this one is going to be fairly interesting. I think we're going to start to think of instantly the Pink Floyd song of "We Don't Need No Education," and you're going to think of tuck shops or sweet shops being looted and children burning their books and all this crazy, chaotic things which can occur. But it is slightly different to what you think the situation would be, and I'm just going to go around and just describe a certain situation of anarchic, which pretty much means no real rulers, so none of this hierarchy sort of, I am the teacher, you must learn the curriculum that's been laid down by the government, and you must recite this, and how much you know about the curriculum is how much we're going to give you in a grade, and that is what you're going to be marked at when you go into the employment world. It's really not about that. It's more to do about unlocking children's minds and getting them on a path where they can gradually achieve some kind of marketable skill into the outer world, and obviously turn things into a value exchange. So obviously once I came out of school, other than knowing basics of maths and or math and English, and we're talking about basic here at the best of time, I must admit I was not too bad at math. But, yeah, just little things like this, and really just a couple of, I just might have known a few little things and topics of subjects that I might have learnt, but I really didn't have any kind of marketable skills into the business world. Really sort of questioned what was the entire purpose of me being stuck into a school, which really pretty much destroyed my mind more than anything else, rather than made my mind flourish and really want to go on a connecting journey of going through one enticing, curious path to another. So something went wrong at some stage along the line, and what I want to do here is just to mark some sort of little blueprint. I know that there is different private schools out there which have got different models which probably do not go by the government school curriculum style of things, and I'm probably adapting a few of the ideas from them which I am converting into Education in Anarchy. But yeah, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an idea, and this will give you either two things. It will give you sort of a perspective of where maybe your education was failing you, and potentially where you have children and how you would like to educate them, which is going to be a massive bonus to the outside world and everyone, really. I think this can be fairly important, and yeah, there's something to be said about the Prussian schooling method before we start. I've mentioned about this national curriculum and how everyone should learn the things which are set within the state. I guess there is some fundamental basics there which are quite important about speaking maybe like the nation's language and writing and communication. And there's probably quite some good things in mathematics and science which should be applied. But I think the way in which the structure was led, it was like that was the only dominant thing that you should learn. And really, if you're studying things like chemistry, I think really should be more on the side of discovery, and then looking back and saying, okay, right, what do I need to know this information? And then you look back and go, okay, I need to know the periodic table. What's this, then this, and this, and this. Right, thank you for that information. Carry on. It's really like that past-looking thing of what you need to get to this next stage of the frontier, rather than you trying to sit back and revise and learn this periodic table, which really isn't going to apply to anything that you're going to do in that moment in time or into the business world or anything else, because I don't think I've really used the periodic table for many things other than walking around a museum and thinking, I remember those hydrogen and heliums in the top and the noble gases, but beyond that I didn't really have much of a use for any of that kind of information. But maybe if I was in some kind of chemical factory and I needed to know certain informations about safety or how to get certain chemical reactions, then I would be rapidly going back to this periodic table and thinking, oh shit, I really need to learn this now, and really grasp upon that and apply that. Now, obviously there is some weirdness which is occurring here in the education system and to our brains, making us force ourselves to learn and recite useless information which is not applicable to the outside world, just to get some pass marks, pass grades, and then apply it to the next stage. So I guess it is some kind of delayed gratification, but it just seems like an entire waste, and there isn't any kind of long-term rewarding factor which is occurring here to say that anything that you've revised what has led to any kind of purpose. So this fundamentally gets a couple of things going on. Either you get people that go through school just thinking, I can't really be bothered revising this, and then just get low grades and then just get knocked out of school. Or potentially you may have situations where you learn a variety of things, get high grades in a lot of things, and then really realise later that all you've done is just revised information and retained information, but you never really use any of that information in the first place, and realise that an education is pretty much a waste of time as well. So there may be certain few examples where maybe you've gone into a fairly good discipline like science or mathematics, and then you may find that a lot of the stuff that you've learned is applicable to your future self. However, I would say more so that it's probably not, and even the people who have studied mathematics and even science probably only use a tiny little bit of a marginal fraction of what they've learned in their previous schooling methods. And then when they've gone to the workforce, then they've had to really branch into or be very more wider scoped into a certain sector or discipline, which is more marketable to the outside world. Okay. Laying it down. Now, remember the Prussian schooling method is really for the state as well. Just remember that one. So the Prussian schooling method is to create soldiers who can obey orders, and there is a hierarchy system where you must take orders and you must obey them and do as you're told. Remember that one at school? So yeah, it's that kind of system which is prevailing and gives us from a very onset some kind of peer hierarchy structure which chains us all the way from the top of the headmaster of the school and all the subsidiaries of the teachers and the class aides, and then there is another structure of hierarchy within the school, within the children itself. You may have, say, the cool people, the bullying, strong type people, the gang people, the geeky people. There is a hierarchy structure and stuff like that, and no, there's not really anything to do with how people have ascended to the knowledge that they've got to, or anything like that. I guess you could say to a certain degree that teachers have, but again, if they were really, really good with their multiple skills in the outside world and they could turn over a decent profit with the knowledge that they had, majority of them wouldn't be sitting there being a teacher earning 20 to 30,000 a year, but would be probably being a massive inventor earning millions. So yeah, that's the current sort of state of the schooling system. Just a little bit of other information here I'd like to add. In the past, there was Sort of like the old style way of schooling was where you would have a load of philosophers like Socrates or Aristotle all standing around in a crowd. They might have even been doing drugs like drinking or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what would have happened. Probably not, I would imagine. But they would stand around and they would have a little bit of a debate about things, and they would study things like geometry and mathematics and things like that, and work together in this kind of crowd of studiers and debaters and things like that. And they would call them the academies. There was a little sign above their walls sometimes which they would come in, and it would all be based upon nobody should walk in here unless they know geometry, and this is just sort of some kind of logical thing where people would not be allowed in unless they know some kind of logos or some kind of logic. So there's certain principles which would be occurring here, and there was a good fueling, or if you look back to the original educators or the original philosophers in the world which had created westernized philosophy, and even if you look at Asian philosophy and a lot of other places, there was this sort of high incentive drive of logic-based deductive thinking or critical thinking, which was applied amongst people, and there was a constant points of reference and argument which was created in the system. There wasn't necessarily, there was probably respect, but there wasn't a situation of total dominance and hierarchy structure, but more so an allowance of debates. And I would imagine that Socrates would welcome a debate against him, and I would imagine Aristotle would welcome any kind of debate or maybe conjecture, but I guess maybe conjecture is a little bit more varied. But yeah, they would all welcome somebody to question them. And how many teachers would you know that would allow them to question their principles or anything that they choose in the classroom? Probably very, very few. And if you did find one, then I would probably imagine that they wouldn't be working too well within the schooling structure itself. So we do have, a very interesting system here. And what I would say is that we need to potentially explore different ideas which can brush over this old system of governance and creating worker bees that can go out to the factories and learn these very designed kind of fashions of idea and obey certain principles and all this kind of stuff. So, education in anarchy. So what is the incentive drivers of young children? Now, obviously, there is a certain thing of a child's mind where they have, let's just say, a driver. Everybody has a driver. Now, there's probably, I would hope that you would have had a situation where you would have been addicted to something. Now, maybe not a computer game, but I would hope there was some kind of fairly decent addiction that was created in your past. Now, this is really weird. I'm talking about addiction already when we're going into the education system, but just stay with me on this one. Now, if there was an addiction, this would be a very good, rewarding, raising your living standards kind of addiction, then this wouldn't be too much of a bad thing. Now, I remember there's been a couple of times where I have found myself fairly addicted, even in a schooling environment, and it was amazing. It was an amazing situation where I had been addicted into a subject. How amazing could that be? And really, the situation of addiction here is that I have made a certain prediction with a device or with my hands, and the outcome of that is has come back and given me some kind of reward. Either it's matched my prediction or not quite met my prediction. And therefore, I have been given an endorphin rush of a prediction coming true. So I remember, I think I've mentioned this before, I remember that there was this little BBC computer thing with this little rat thing with a pen on it, and you could make little commands as to whether you could, that little robotic rat thing would go forward one step, back one step, and you could doodle out things with the predictions of the programming to write certain things. So I might have written down my name and things like that, and I was totally fascinated in that. I noticed that I guess maybe there may have been some peers that weren't as interested in me in it as I was, but I was absolutely smashing it, and I was doing a little bit of a programmy thing on the ground, and I wouldn't have been any more than about 7 years old, maybe a little bit older than that, but yeah. So that was incredibly addictive for me, and I was totally stuck into that world. And obviously there is a massive world out there of computer programming. Now, that never really the connection of the dots never really moved on from that point until I was about 27, and then I started to learn how to program again. But beyond that, there was some kind of addiction system which was going into my mind, and I was like, oh my god, this is fantastic. I'm doing really well here. So if there was a certain element of, okay, right, you've got an addiction here in this kind of field, why don't we just make this a little bit harder for you? There's a little bit more of a program behind this, and gradually raising the bar so that I am getting myself more and more disciplined into my own addiction. Now, nobody really claims that Bill Gates had an addiction or a disastrous addiction which ruined his social life. Maybe Bill Gates might say that, but I don't think anybody else out from the outside world would say, oh, Bill Gates ruined his life by sitting indoors all day long and computer programming. You can see that there has been some certain kind of addiction which has occurred in that person's mind, where they're making predictions of certain things. They get outcomes, maybe failure, maybe success, and then they really cope with dealing with failures, and then they get the good rewarding outcome eventually after hard graft. So that happens pretty much from all the greatest inventors of all time, where you go through Henry Ford, Edison, Steve Jobs, all of those people. They're always making plenty of tremendous failures and then coming up with one incredible design eventually. Now, I guess some people are very good at making predictions and coming up with some very acutely designed good predictions which come up with a really good idea and result in the success and the endorphin rush. But yeah, that is the fostering and the harvesting of a child's mind. Now, something's gone incredibly wrong somewhere now, because we don't really do that or really apply that too much, and we say instead what you need to do is you need to learn this irrelevant thing, which is this piece of paper on a piece of a grade on a piece of paper, and then you can go to somewhere else where you can get more grades on pieces of paper. So it's just this really non-physical environment, or some kind of thing where you're not seeing any kind of endorphin rush for the predictions that you're making to a direct result. Okay, so that's just one thing about incentive. I will go further into that a little bit later. But there needs to be something in the education system which would have that incentive motive and have the enabling of children to just really foster their addictions. I know it sounds incredibly weird. Imagine if you had that as the motto of your school: foster your addictions. But that is really what is occurring here with the greatest inventors and the people that improve each other's living standards more than anything else. Okay, another thing that will be fairly important with a good anarchic school would be voluntarism. So people who would go to school would be on their own voluntary merits. This would be kind of hard for two parents trying to go to work every day and try and earn as much money as they can to afford a house, to keep up with the Joneses. So maybe that might pull one of the parents back into the household. So there would be an element of voluntarism where people choose to go to school. Now, everyone would say, oh yeah, there's no way you're going to get your kid to go to school and and be bothered to go into that environment. Everyone's going to sit back and play on their iPads or just play around with their parents. But it is really, if you're going to an environment where you are fostering a addiction or some kind of incentive driver, which is going to give you a marketable skill for the outside world, so you can afford, if you're really into material goods, you can afford more material goods for yourself. Or if you're really motivated by raising the living standards of all, then this is the perfect place for you and the most moral place for you as well. And maybe there will be an incredible voluntary incentive for you to wake up and go down to that place. Sometimes people might even think of just not even going to sleep while they're there. This might sound incredibly mad, but in a situation of schooling, you're pretty much forced to go there. And if you said to the majority of children in the Western world, let's say, would you, if you'd had the choice of staying at home today or going to school, what would you prefer? And I would say the majority of those children would say, I would prefer not to go to school unless there was some kind of very rewarding thing that was going to occur for their day for that day. Right, so voluntarism, important. And if you're not starting on that basis, then there is certainly a degree of force which is being applied into that person's mind, and that is a massive disincentivization which is occurring. If I'm saying you must learn this thing and you're forced by the dissatisfaction of the entire schooling system and maybe your parents getting into trouble and all this kind of stuff, there is an incredible disincentivism where you're being forced to learn and recite things, which even isn't really your choice as well. So this is not even freedom of choice to choose what specialization you would like from even a very young early age. As I mentioned, as my mind, if I was a young school kid, the age of 7, and they said, oh right, you're really interested in that, we're not going to have to put that away now and tell you, Ross, like I probably was told, can you put that away now, it's time to learn something else or do something differently. I was probably, I think maybe back in those early years, I probably you was allowed at a certain time to jump onto something at the end of your day. So there may have been certain elements where I would have been able to jump back on that thing. But yeah, that is incredibly hampering of a mind which is trying to find some kind of degree of interest in something that would have a very good marketable skill as well. Okay, next thing would be potentially mixed classes. Now, I know that this thing happens in things like Montessori schools and stuff like that, where you have older kids working with younger kids, and one of the best ways of learning things is where you recite information to other people. I know that I have greatly improved. If you hear the first of my podcasts, they are awful. They're like all the time, and over time, I have just managed to slightly get rid of that. It's just a little bit more easier for you to listen to, but yeah, there's a learning practice, and my mind has improved as well. I'm just improving on my mind. It's just really getting better in just learning things. My curiosity is building. Everything's just, all the muscles of the brain. I know it's not a muscle, but it's all being practiced and exercised, and it's really starting to create a much stronger engine. So reciting information, teaching other people stuff that you've learned is a way of just really translating it in your mind. You've now acquired this thought pattern which you've mastered, but you really now need to explain what you've understood and explain it to another person so that they can master it themselves. And it's sometimes very good for somebody that's not like been in the education system for a number of years to explain how something works, but somebody who's just acquired that knowledge, this is how I got to this point. So there is that element of understanding and knowledge sharing, which can be very fundamental to the way we understand things. So yeah, another thing is so I mentioned this a little bit before lightly, is curiosity and ideas. Curiosity and ideas. Now, I guess you might say, okay, well, ideas do pop up and you can come up with like certain ideas in classroom and things like that, but it's not the whole education system is built upon your ideas or the freeing of your mind to put forward different ideas or objections or anything like that. It's more so for the reciting of you reciting information that has already been acquired from the ideas of everything else. So this is a little bit problematic in its starting. So we've got a situation, where school kids are just like, okay, right, here's the board, write down everything that's being done here and all this kind of stuff. Now, imagine if we had a situation of a classroom and somebody said, okay, right, I'm just going to put forward this engine. Right, here's an engine. Now, this is how an engine works. This is how this piece works. This is how this piece works. The carburetor. I'm not sure exactly how all the ins and outs of an engine works. I think, and then the teacher or the tradesman, whatever he is in this class, says, I think this is the best engine possible that you could create, or the most energy efficient engine, or the fastest engine with the materials that we have at this school. Can anybody debate me, or anybody come up with a better idea than what I can? And people will be encouraged to debate, question, and sort of go, okay, no, I think what we could do is we could increase the energy capacity. Maybe we could add an extra cylinder. We could do this, do that. And then people could flourish all of these incredible ideas. Now you can see the connection of the dot of how this raises living standards as well. If people were just flourished in ideas and entrepreneurialism of how to create better things and improve on life and things like that, then you are fostering some incredible ideas of minds, and you're fueling curiosity as well, which is the primal capacity of our minds. You are not destroying people's innocence of like saying this is the way the world works, and you are incapable of thinking as well as everybody else. No idea that comes up is stupid. We will recognize any idea, and even if the idea is stupid, then there may be some kind of little side deriving idea which can come from that. So it's just this methodology of idea generation, just coming up with these ideas day after day, and maybe a very strong part of vocational education where you're actually building with these materials or designing with these materials, and you are producing these things and making your predictions. It's important to make these predictions and seeing your failures until you get certain successes which occur. That you may have a number of projects which are occurring. You might just walk into a room where you see this sort of assembly field of different projects which are going on. You peer over people's shoulders and you go, wow, that's interesting. And then you may be able to come over and you might say, oh, can I help you out? Can I offer you any hands? And they say, yeah, we actually need some help with designing this part or something like that. And then there could be certain elements of collaboration, which is obviously very important in a working sphere, of how to determine how you specialize in certain fields of producing things. So you can see here as well, there's this element of collaboration which is occurring, where more so in schools, it's more so about you can have teams and competition and fighting against each other and things like that, whereas instead, or like you have your classes and all this kind of stuff, whereas there's a more of a focus of collaboration and cooperation between peers, of producing things, of retaining information and reciting things between one another. I think that would be an incredible environment to work in. All right, so and obviously there's some important thing here which I've not really covered too well just yet, and that is an element of teachers. Now, teachers are really some kind of strange thing that's been created by governments. So obviously this is like, a teacher's got to a stage where they've studied the curriculum, they've understood the curriculum pretty well, and they've accomplished this curriculum to go on to universities to study teaching, which is the study of the government state's curriculum and how to keep within the structure of that system and school. So it is a very closed-minded, you must understand the curriculum, and this is the way that the schooling system works. It's not necessarily about come on, peers, debate me about this subject. Let's debate. Come on, who wants to start claiming to me that the world is flat against me? Come on, give me a headshot. And you don't have teachers fostering certain arguments. You're not going to have a teacher. Maybe you might have some good teachers in maybe universities, things like that. But you're not going to have teachers going out and say, right, let's have a debate today. Who would like to debate this subject, or who would like to debate the Prussian schooling method? Who wants to debate the schooling method that we're in today? No teacher could do that. I mean, I'm sure teachers probably would like to do that, but they know that they're in a system of the structure which prevents anything like that happening. So the teacher would be of a different ilk. I would imagine it would be more beneficial to have very well, I'd probably say, let's say that who would be the best teachers you could think of. Now, I would think of like Nikola Tesla would be like the most amazing teacher. Probably it would be like so far beyond a lot of us anyway with his knowledge and his ideas, but the way that he could show how his ideas work and how we could study what he does and things like that, and give examples of like how he works electricity and understands alternative current, or Henry Ford telling us how he puts together ideas and plans, and he sits there and he explains things. You instantly, obviously, if you've got some kind of recognized entrepreneur who's standing in front of you who has achieved what he wants to achieve. Now, I know it's pretty hard to get these kind of people in front of a school system, but I know that there can be people that are very moral and they want to do altruistic things and they want to help the world and they want to share value, so they want to return this value back to them, and then maybe they want to find out who are the best and brightest minds, and they want to take them on for their companies. Who knows what is going on in that respect. But you may have this situation where highly skilled entrepreneurial people come into the situations, engineers, whoever, and they say, okay, right, let's just try and build something today. Let's see how it goes. And every single step of the way, you're on the step of the unknown. That is the thrilling part. That is obviously, if you look at the thrill seekers that jump off of buildings and all that kind of stuff, they're on the stage of the unknown. They might kill themselves, but probably it's better on the stage of the unknown of how this invention could change the world. And if you can foster that thing, that's the most incredible fostering of the mind that could ever happen. And if you're sitting there in front of an entrepreneur or a highly successful person like Nikola Tesla, he instantly would command incredible amounts of respect for what he has done, what he has studied, how he has been disciplined. If you think of Nikola Tesla, he's never drunk, I know he's an extreme person, but he's never had a partner, all these kind of things. But he's literally devoted himself entirely to a study of electricity and fields and things like that. So he commands respect without even a shadow of a doubt. Whereas if you have a teacher who you start to think, I'm not really sure that you do know everything, and then you're using your authority to bat me down, you don't respect those kind of people. You just know that you really want to just get them back, and just whenever their back's turned, you want to say, oh, piss off, and stuff like that. So having skilled tradesmen coming down and saying, hey, this is how this system works. Do you want to build a house? Shall we build an extension to this school? Whatever you want to do, this academy, we can start building it. Obviously, there's certain safety requirements which would be fairly important, and maybe that may be one of the real key components of modern teachers in an anarchic education system, is to know degrees of safety in environments. But I've heard that there's definitely important things which have been studied among children, that if you enable them to have fairly dangerous things like play with electricity, play with knives, play with all these kind of things, there is an instant more respect of how things work. Now, when I said play with knives, I'm not meaning like let's have a dagger competition or anything like that, but use knives in operational manners to I don't know, for cooking, whatever you need to use, or use heavy machinery, whatever that needs to be done, but a certain element of safety and respect. I know you have woodwork classes, you have metalwork classes and things like that, but it is that element of getting children to use it at their own elements and be keenly aware of their own safety and using things to a correct degree. So everyone goes, oh no, you can't allow children to go into rooms and start operating like dangerous machinery, but any kid who goes to school pretty much can go into their kitchen cabinet and pick up a knife. So it's not like this crazy stuff is going to happen anyway. So it's an important thing. And yeah, so I guess educators would be skilled in their arena. It will be probably more ideal for them to be entrepreneurs or people that are really pushing the ideas more so than really able to just recite information. If you're pushing forward ideas, I think that there's going to be naturally this innate thing where you're going to have information because you've been forced to learn this information for you to further your own success. That's the key. That is the key. But I don't think it ever gets installed. Okay, so maybe if this is a business sort of anarchic sort of system, you could have different things that are deployed. There may be certain classes that are tailored for specific needs. Males prefer more physical activities. Females prefer more theoretical. I'm not sure exactly what the sexes are the best requirements, but maybe if there's a business incentive to find these skills and learn these things and flourish them, that would be fairly important. If the school had a open doors policy where people can just walk in and find the room that they want to get to and then approach it, and the classroom isn't structured in like this is the opening, this is the close, this is the subject matter, all this kind of stuff. People just walk in and go, okay, right, I'm just trying to work out this and this, and then people just sit down and just think about these things. They talk and discuss about the problem that person's having. And you could just walk in a classroom of, I don't know, biology, whatever, and you could speak, you could debate, you can come up with ideas with people about the subject, which would really engage you more than anything else, rather than you picking up this massive fat textbook and just trying to write down little passages from it. Now, I guess, obviously, you probably might need to pick up that textbook at one point if everybody's got a failure of knowledge, but what you would have to do is everybody would have to like really that's the hardest grinding point of man, but it really incentivizes you. If you're really going, oh, I need to crack or solve this problem, this is the jigsaw puzzle that I need to crack, then you've got the most incredible incentive drivers for you to find this information and attain it to achieve your success. But if you are in a situation where you're forced to learn this piece of text from a thing because you know it's going to be in your examination next month, then you're like, fuck me, I can't be bothered with this. So yeah, this is a very open sort of door policy. You walk into the rooms, you find the structure of the room that you want to learn in this particular discipline. There is no ringing of the bell to say that your class is over. You can stay there or choose to go there for as long as you do so intend to. You can bring down any kind of your projects or any of your inventions down to your room or classroom, and people can work with you or you can choose to work with them. So there is a fairly cooperative societal structure which is occurring here. I'm sure that if you are helping other people at first, if you come up with your idea or your project, people will return the favor back to you. So there is these elements. Now, okay, another thing is obviously, how do we grade people? How on earth does a business world know exactly what to do? So I would say first and foremost, really what you want to do is create loads of entrepreneurs into this world. You don't really want to create loads of worker bees that work for other people, but you might have certain people that really decide that they want to mitigate their risks, don't want to take too many risks, don't really want to go and face too many failures and work for other companies. And that's fine and that's fair enough. People decide to do that. It's a fairly insurance policy basis. People, I know that I've chosen that path more so than anything else. And yeah, people would walk into that path and they go, okay, right, I want to just work for a company and I don't want to have the risk of business failure and see them losing face, so I'd rather work for a company. But they would have a problem in grading because the grading doesn't quite exist. Now, the problem with the grading is the grading system is based upon your memory retention and things like that, but it's not necessarily about your idea generation. So the best way in which your ideas are met with a grading system is how you have marketed yourself. Now, I know where you market yourself, there's other factors involved, but where you get companies coming involved and they say, oh, you'll probably have a very good connection with companies anyway, and they'll be looking and maybe working very closely with you to see if there is any sort of good skills that you have that they would like to encompass you in their business. Maybe they would say, okay, we don't have to work with this academy anymore, we can start paying you a wage, and they would retain you and take you away that way and train you on certain areas itself from that perspective. But I would imagine with ideas and things that you come across, you may upload them to a database and people can review them and they can see that there's some kind of value aspect or there's some degree of quality to your work that you're doing, and people can study your database of your production and then realize, okay, this person's pretty good. I like the way that he works. I think this is the person that I want to get. Now, it's really incredible for an employer. It's incredibly hard for you to get some kind of grade and then go, okay, yeah, this person's an A grade. Let me have them with me. You don't really know exactly what they've done to get that grade, how it's come to that point, and all those kind of things. Whereas if you know that this person has worked in collaboration with other people to get to accomplish this product, there's some high degree of quality. There's some ideas that they've produced on their own which have done this, this, and this. There is an incredible amount of focus and ideas. The employer would say, okay, this person's pretty good. I think we really want him in our company. I will offer them this wage to this person, and we'll have them on board. Now, okay, I know that obviously you can't say everyone can't be an inventor, but you can really foster a lot of inventive minds. And if you think of how the world is getting more and more automated, and all these mundane, crappy secretary tasks and stuff like that are really getting more and more automated, really the focus and the drive of education should be on the forefront of the unknown and the idea generation, more so than the forefront of the recite my information sort of thing. So, okay. This is where grading happens. Grading basically gets abolished, and people look at the product of your work, and then they grade you in accordance to what that is the fit for their company. This person is good at writing letters. I think they're a good fit for my company. I will employ them because of their library of work. Now, if you think of like the people that work in the tech industries, they're probably the most liberal market in the world. There's not really a grade for somebody that's worked on well, I guess you can get information technology sort of grades and awards and stuff like that. But really, people look at their, am I using the right word? Their repertoire or their logbook of the work that they've provided for their customers in the past, and they go, oh, that's quite good. I think I will employ them. So I think there would be a greater connection between the employer and the person who is in this education of Anarchy system, and they would just grab them and take them on board and say, okay, I love this work that you're creating. Please join my company. Here is the money. You have got this thing. You're only going to be tied in for this contract period. I'm sure there's contracts and stuff more so that will be involved. Yada, yada, yada. So it would be incredible how that system would work. And yeah, I think that people would find places which they would be more specialized in. And I think, what's another thing that always happens? Obviously, people would be looking to market trends. I think this is an interesting area. But people looking to say, okay, right, where's the money happening? That's a bit of a problem in itself. But it would be amazing if people would say, where's the value happening? How can we benefit society more so and more so? Now, imagine if everyone started to think, okay, robotics is pretty cool. I've never really touched any kind of robotics in like my education or anything like that. But imagine if everyone said, okay, yeah, we really need to start learning this robotic stuff a bit more. Imagine how quickly we would have house aides who could do the washing, the ironing, and everything else. It would be pretty rapid if all these educated minds and entrepreneurial minds were studying the field of robotics. And you could come into an education system pretty rapidly. Now, I love things like I would love also a situation where you would have of an academy of an anarchic academy of education or skills. There may be some kind of class which is some kind of booster class where you say, right, you may have been in the traditional education systems, but we're going to really foster you into extreme learning now. So maybe they might need to say, okay, right, we need to give you the history of everything in 1 hour's class or 1 day's class. They're going to try and, like, you know, where that Matrix situation where they say, right, I'm going to teach you kung fu and be a black belt in about 2 seconds. There probably might be that kind of situation which would occur for children just to acquire information at a rapid pace. I love things which are fast paced and like blows my mind at every kind of second. I'm really not interested in things that are very boring and just like, oh, this is getting really grueling. Only if it gets me to where I want to be. So imagine if there was like, okay, right, what we need to do now is we need to really install philosophic reasoning, logic-based arguments, how to deduce, how to debate, how to structure arguments, how to invent things, how to generate new ideas. Let's just really push all these ideas and theories into a very fast training methodology classroom, so that you've got the skills to walk around all the other classes to be fairly accomplished. What is common etiquette to walk into another person's project and say hello and things like that. Yeah, you might need all of these kind of little skills which can flourish you on in this academy state situation. But I would say like a history of the world in like 1 day, that would be incredible. The history of science in 1 day. You could have like these massive extreme booster packs which you take on, and it just gives you this massive like knowledge base in a very short space of time, which is like whoa, you've got all this stuff that comes into your mind, and it gives you this incredible degree of knowledge which flies into your mind. I love as much information as possible just like delivered on roids, basically. But when it comes to school systems, it seems to get really granular and grainy, and really, unless I need to get to that next point of understanding that real grainy and granular information, there's not much point to me learning that, because I'm not going to really have that marketable skill which I need to apply into the outside world. So I can imagine there's going to be these add-on pack lessons which you need to apply yourselves, where there's going to be these masterful, skilled orators or teachers that can allow debate back as well, and they say, right, I'm going to give you a brief history of everything. And I know there's books that do this kind of stuff as well, which is amazing, and they're highly interesting, highly curious, and anything that can make you go, whoa, in as many times as possible in a classroom environment, I think is more beneficial than anywhere where you're just trying to doodle some piece of crap in the corner of your page, and you're just really wondering about why you're there and the nature of the world and your reality that you're in. So that is important. So I mentioned there that there is some connection to the business world in these academies. There would be some incredible connection. People who are company owners and things like that would have a very high degree of importance of these minds. Minds are the most important resources in the world, and if they notice that there is the Nikola Teslas, the Henry Fords, which are coming out of the woodworks, they would be like, whoa, we need to get this guy really quickly. I'm going to give him this contract and things like that, and then people would realize, okay, if I'm really worth that much, then it'll be like, okay, well, maybe not. I would there'll be a big load of negotiations which would go on and all this kind of stuff. So there would be an incredible connection to the business world in school, where there is literally no, or very next to none, connection to the business world in education systems. Okay. All right. There was something important in this. People are just very... Okay, so another thing would be a situation where I know when I'm trying to learn something or trying to get something mastered, sometimes I only really need a teacher or somebody to tell me something to do for about 5 minutes. So say if I'm changing a plug over, I would like to say, okay, how do I change a plug over? What it goes from this to this to this to this? And literally that is all I need. And then I can continue on what the hell I'm doing for the rest of the day. If I'm building something with bricks and all I just need to know is how to do a little electrical plug connection, then I can carry on and continue on doing my brick building for that entire day. And I didn't really need to go to the effort of going to school to learn this one little piece of information and then run back down. So this is an important aspect to education. Specialist knowledge would need to be sort of like available at some kind of degree of like whether you need it sort of popped in right now or a situation where you sit down and you just take in loads of information and you exercise your degree of curiosity and idea generation back to them. So sometimes you might be just at home or working on your land or working on your factory, and you may need to use somebody with specialist degree knowledge to help you out with a certain task or perform a certain task. So maybe there might be in these academies, these little call centers where people have a monetary value for how much they would like a reward for understanding this point or just need to talk about things. Now, I understand like changing a plug, you could probably find pretty easily on a website. But when it comes to something that's just like a little bit more mechanical and something that not many people have really done before, you may need sort of help by the educators that are working there or people that are learning these processes or even the idea generators who are there to say, okay, maybe we could try this. Maybe this may be a better idea of how you could do this, solve this problem. I know there's websites already existent in this world which offer monetary value for ideas that can solve certain cost-based problems. But yeah, you could phone into this thing and say, okay, right, I really need to design this factory, but the layout's gone a bit crazy, and I need to find the most cost-effective way of doing this. Let's call into these guys. I just want to get a quick bit of advice and opinion from these guys. Phone in, and obviously they get a little kickback in charges as well. And then these guys can go, oh yeah, we need to do this, this, and this, and this. And yeah, hey presto, you've got a few ideas on your plate, and then you can work with those. So remember, you've got Google Glasses, probably could get really improved from that stage. So your teacher could literally just be represented, or like 3D imagery, could put that person there with you for that 5 minutes while you're trying to learn that certain thing, and even point to the points of which you need to connect certain cables or wires, so you understand how to get that thing working, and then you move on. I know that the one thing is more frustrating than anything else is really how not to do something, and you really just want to know what that information is. So the speed in which you acquire those knowledge gaps and you get that information back in return is incredible for our entrepreneurial skills and just in the general living world. Now you can see how this education system really connects with business and value exchange, and it really just goes all the way up the ranks from children all the way to adults. And there is a real big blurredness between the two areas, and there's not really sort of this distinct, you are in the education system now, you are in the workforce now. There is a massive blurred waters between the two, and I would imagine that you probably have certain elements where you go in, you go out, you might be doing a bit of both at the same time. You might find that your business is done fairly well and you'd like to spend more of your time providing value for other people, and given your knowledge, you might find some fairly old people in these skilled rooms, people who have achieved things, people who have got really good ways in which they can share information. Another thing is that we've built the entire education system around knowledge retention and like pushing forward that information back out, but we've never really educated ourselves in the field of idea generation and how to invoke ideas as much. So I know there's like things like six-hat training and stuff like that, but imagine if the schooling system was about how to generate ideas. There would be a massive flourishment of ideas and inventions by unlocking people's minds in the way in which people could think and improve on objects as time progresses. So, very useful tools in that respect. Okay, so another thing about education systems is potentially you would still have a loan system which you could acquire a loan where you can use the education system for a number of hours. I remember like where you go down to supermarkets now, you can get cards for like material goods like the Apple Store and things like that. Imagine if you can get certain cards for the academies, which were really important. Everyone was like, oh yeah, I'd love to get a little bit more of an academy understanding of things. And people would use those things. People would get loans out to have a load of credits so that they can go down to that system. There may be certain incentive measures where you have people which can come back into the education system to teach people other things. I know if some people are on the forefront of an invention or an idea and they've only got the specialist knowledge, there needs to be some kind of incentive measure for them to come back other than their own altruistic sort of things of improving the world, to come back and teach other people, all right, this is how we do it. I've just discovered this new form of electricity or whatever. I know we're going on the Nikola Tesla sort of thing. And there is some kind of incentive measure which enables people who have mastered certain skills to come back and show other people. So there would be that thing. But I guess there would be a lot of, as I mentioned, this voluntary aspect of children. There may be a fairly strong aspect of voluntarism in the educators as well. People who are entrepreneurs probably have really got themselves a decent amount of coin, and the only reason why they are there is to improve other people's lives. So there's certain incentive measures which would be occurring at different points in time. All right, so another thing which would be fairly interesting would be okay, yeah, so another thing would be, I would imagine, is parent involvement. There has been a lot of information as to say that the more the parent is involved with the child's education, better results have occurred, but I guess this is the studying form. But if parents are involved, and I know that it was always interesting to find that my parents had definite knowledge gaps and I was more accomplished in something in one degree or one or the other, that would strive me to push me on a little bit further and understand that I was getting a bit more successful than them in certain things. So parent involvement is fairly necessary, and maybe like that would be encouraged for them to go down to the academy with them. Maybe that would improve on discipline of people that were there, so that they could be a little bit more. They could see how adults interact with each other, and then that could be displayed amongst their peers, so there would be less so of an environment of bullying and all of those kind of things which would occur, and how to use certain manners and how to deal with other people. So I would say that if you had one parent staying at home with the child, they would be able to go to the academy with the child and see how they're going for certain parts of the day, help them out with their projects. Maybe if they need to go home and do the cooking, they can do that thing, and then once they're home, then they can do that kind of stuff. So you would have this parent involvement, and it wouldn't be just like the parents are just only allowed to go on certain nights where they can talk about how their child's doing, but they can be interactively involved in the education of the children, which is meant to be incredibly important. Homeschooling children seem to do far more successfully than state-schooled educators. There's obviously a multi-level of reasoning behind why that does occur, but that is Fairly important. Just to say, if you go down to the academy, there may be certain things which are a little bit more governmenty about how the information that you could acquire. You may be able to get things like market research and population studies, statistics, things like that, which really are really not acquired from schools, even though they are sort of government entities. It would be good to get interconnected information like research information and tools to further educational standards. Even ideas of projects or business ideas which are coming into the fray. News articles, I guess news and current affairs would be fairly important. You don't really get too much in. I know there's a current affairs sort of study class, but you don't really get too much in the realms of what is in vogue, what is the trends, what is the future, things like that. And I guess there would be a connection with academies as to what is the new market, what is going to be our requirements in the future, how that's going to improve our lives, and how we can design products for them in the future. Okay. So just remember this environment. Failure in schools is always like, oh, you've failed in your classroom, you've done so bad, and all this kind of stuff. Failure in an academy would not be discouraged. In fact, it's a fine and perfectly normal thing to happen. People will fail all the time, and people would understand the principle that it's a number of failures which will get you to the point of which you understand and overcome your failure. And obviously, the main point is overcoming failures. Once you've overcome your failure, then you get the endorphin rush and you've accomplished something, and then that will strive you on to succeed your next objective. It's important. It's so important. And I guess if you create a model or schooling system where people are just repetitive failures and there's no real sort of encouragement or understanding that, okay, this failure is totally fine, totally normal in society, and really there's different ways in which we can tackle this to overcome failures, then it's important. It is a learning methodology. You learn things about life when you fail. You make a prediction and it fails. But I just think it's in where you're just, there's no incentive driver for just trying to pass an examination which goes so far into the future. If you're doing something that's more vocational, something that you are designing, you're making predictions on the spot, and then it comes back with a failure. That's fine. I mean, it's even quite interesting to see an engine blow up and not work. Everyone starts to laugh after a while. But you learn and you study from that failure, and there is actually information to return from that failure, so that you get some kind of information back as to why that failure happened, and then you can progress on from that point. Whereas if you're just failing an exam and you just fails because you didn't study, there's just, okay, well, I didn't study, so therefore I know that I'm going to get this prediction. So there is just this complete shutdown of the mind. The prediction already knows that if you don't study, you don't get the marks. So there is no real incentive if you just and if you do if you do study and you only just get a tiny bit more of an upgrade, then you just think, okay, well, I'm destined to be a failure. So that's my prediction. So I'm just going to stay in this rut. So yeah, this failure element is important, and it's an interesting thing to understand. And if you are just giving out half the amount of kids a load of fail grades, or telling them that they're not achieving in what they should be doing against their peers, then this is incredibly destructive from day one, and it really just does sort of destroy a person's mind from the onset, especially when you are trying to encourage and flourish curiosity and ideas. It's not all about just throwing this big F on a big page in their face to say that you are destined to be a failure, but really just saying, well, that was interesting. Let's find out how that failure worked out, and see if we can make a different prediction here and see if it can come successfully this way. All right. Endorphin rushes. That's really what you want to be fostering. I know it sounds bloody addictive, like weird stuff, but it's connecting the mind into the right neuropaths which flourish entrepreneurialism. It's not about really giving kids loads of Fs so that they just turn to solvent abuse or whatever other drugs that they want to get involved in and find the endorphin rushes there because they've just been totally isolated from society. It is that area which really does flourish people. So, okay, so I always keep on going on about these virtues, but it's fairly important. I guess honesty would be important in these virtues, where you could be honest with other people and describe your thoughts and ideas. Bravery to get your point across and to stand up and debate and maybe argue against your peers, or maybe you could definitely have disagreements with your the people that are telling you, the skilled people. And you could go off in your own project and try something else and realize it failed, and then at least you'd have the humility to go, yes, I was wrong. That showed in right in front of me that failed. There's all of these different elements of which virtues would be playing out in a situation: cooperation, kindness, playing back for one for the other. And it is fostering curiosity. That is one of the golden things in terms of virtues and education, which I think education systems nowadays, especially state education systems, seem to have an incredibly degree of way of stamping out bravery, stamping out curiosity, stamping out all of these fundamental virtues which inspire us and to strive forward as humans and as for the humanity of our race. So I've given you some thoughts and ideas. It's a private method, I would imagine, so you probably could set up things, but I guess there's probably regulations, bureaucrats who wouldn't like certain things of these ideas that could be put forward. But if you've got any ideas, if you've got anything that you'd like to share with me that you might think could expand on these theories or this inductive thinking, please share it out with me. If you think I've really gone into some complete dead end trap which can destroy humanity, let me know as well. I'm always fascinated to hear anybody's ideas or theories, and just keep on the forefront of ideas and knowledge, and it can really improve oneself and everybody's. So, bit of a crappy ending there. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll be back again for more podcasts. Goodbye.